The mission, it can remain constant while the method changes. Today, let's just dive into just the competition with ourselves. When a company confuses its method and ultimately says this method is my mission, it begins protecting the wrong thing. And this happens to us as individuals too. Take this and look at your life or your business and just identify one thing that might be there as a method that might be confusing to your ultimate mission. Ask yourself, am I protecting the outcome or am I protecting the way that I've always produced it? All right, let's go. If you're tired of not feeling fit, tired just not having a focus, tired just not having that life that you deserve, this is your place to be. I'm Jason Yarusi. Today, let's just dive into just the competition with ourselves. I want to take you back to 1975 and just imagine walking into a conference room that was honestly something that could be intimidating because you're carrying this product that's the size of a toaster. It weighs approximately 8 pounds, has a camera lens, electronic components, batteries, and a cassette recorder just attached to the side. And you point this at someone and you press a button. There's no film inside, right? The machine captures a black and white picture electronically, and it takes approximately 23 seconds to record that image in a cassette tape. I mean, this picture, it contains over 10,000 pixels. Compared with the camera in your phone today, it almost has nothing. But in 1975, it was the absolute future. That young Kodak engineer who was just carrying this machine was Steve Sasson. And Kodak had put on him to experiment with this new electronic sensor called a CCD. And what he became was something in terms of the first self-contained digital camera. And that created just an extraordinary situation because Kodak invented a technology capable of transforming photography. But at the same time, that technology threatened the business that ultimately was the reason why Kodak was successful. Kodak, they weren't just unsuccessful company looking for just some new thing that had to happen for them to take hold. They weren't desperate for this new direction. It was one of the most powerful photography companies in the world. And its business was just bigger than selling cameras. It was a camera that created the first transaction, the first film that created another transaction, developing the film, created another transaction, printing the photographs, created another transaction. So in fact, they have this digital camera that now takes and erases all those models. Every time a customer took a picture, right, Kodak had one more opportunity to make money. Digital photography, it changed that system. If photographs no longer required film, chemicals, processing, or just traditional prints, some products and honestly business lines became unnecessary. This is what makes disruption so difficult. This new opportunity arrives and it disguises as a threat to what you're currently working on. When you're struggling, you're changing direction, it can feel necessary. But at the same time, when you're winning, change direction, it can feel wrong, irresponsible, out of place. This popular version of the Kodak story is simply that Kodak invented the digital camera, placed it in a closet, and refused to think about it again. In fact, it was so far from the truth because the real story is more complicated. It's more useful. Kodak, they continued to just develop digital technology. It invested billions of dollars in digital imaging. It produced image sensors, professional digital camera equipment, and consumer cameras. I mean, so some of Kodak's digital cameras were praised for their image quality. Kodak, it could see the technological wave that was going to come and make change. But seeing the future ultimately is not the same as building your organization around it. We see this model with Blockbuster and Netflix. Kodak, it remained tied to this economies of a successful film, right, and printing system. It often approached digital photography as it's another way to encourage people to print pictures. Customers, they were moving in a different direction, right? They wanted to take more photographs, right, have more exposure, view them instantly, store them electronically, share them online, and eventually, carry their cameras with them inside their phones. The customer's definition of photography, it has changed, right? A lot of our life as know it has changed by just having an iPhone or having a phone in your pocket. But what happened to Kodak? They decided to change, but too slowly. And in 2012, the company entered Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. The lesson is not that Kodak lacked intelligent people. It was some highly intelligent people that made a highly successful company. The lesson is that the intelligence and the invention is just not always enough for you to remain if your identity is attached to yesterday's model. Kodak's true mission, it wasn't just I manufacture rolls of film. It was a larger mission, right? They were there to capture people in some of their most prized moments and to share those memories. Film was just one method of accomplishing that mission. Digital imaging, it just became another. And, when a company confuses its method and ultimately says this method is my mission, it begins protecting the wrong thing. And this happens to us as individuals too. Maybe your mission is to provide for your family, but you become emotionally attached to one job, right? One investment strategy, one just business model. So you forget to see that what you're doing as your method is not aligned with your mission. Maybe your mission is to become healthy, but you become attached to the workout routine even after an injury takes place, or even after you're seeing that the results are far from the achievement. Maybe your mission is to lead your team, but you're so focused to remain attached to performing every single task yourself because you think that's how you succeed is from beginning and doing each piece of the puzzle. The mission, it can remain constant while the method changes. Ask yourself, am I protecting the outcome or am I protecting the way that I've always produced it? Think about that. Are you protecting the outcome or are you protecting the way that you've gotten there before? That first digital camera, it was slow, heavy, and it produced this tiny black and white image, far from what you see today. It would have been easy to just examine the prototype and conclude that it can never compete with film. But the correct question was, is digital photography better than film today? The correct question, no, was not in fact that. It was, how quickly can this technology improve, or what happens when the improvement continues? What happens when it goes? And this matters for us in business and personal and life and fitness, right? The version of a new system that has always maybe just felt awkward, right? That first attempt, it's like, oh man, I'm delegating may not go smoothly. Or your investment analysis, it might take you hours. First time you underwrite a deal, you may be there for a few days trying to unravel what you're seeking. Your first workout after that long break, oh man, it might feel awful and you might be a little sore that next day. But you can't judge that potential, right? By just the process of just only completing and getting the quality of the first result. Every powerful future begins as an unimpressive first version. Think about that. Every time you try something, it might not look good. Just hearing that, a lot of you might have gotten, chills just thinking about having to go outside of your comfort zone, trying something for the first time that you might not be good at. That's the only way to the success you're seeking. If a new product or habit or employee or a system just can replace something that you currently do, your instinct may be to resist it because you haven't done it before. But refusing to compete with yourself does not eliminate the competition. It doesn't eliminate other people that are looking for the way to make themselves better, understanding that the old way may be good, but is it good enough for the future? Just you as a leader, you must be willing to ask, what part of my current success may not exist 5 years from now? Think about that. Well, customer behavior is changing. Why am I refusing to change? Because the old way is still profitable, right? Oh, I'm making money that way. It will be here forever. Well, how many times have we seen that actually be contrary to the truth? You not have to destroy everything that works. That's not what this is. But you have to be open to test what's out there and see how that can be part of your future. Take this and look at your life or your business and just identify one thing that might be there as a method that might be confusing to your ultimate mission. And write it down. The larger result, it's not trying to just erase everything. It's trying to create yourself. And then ask, if you were starting today with no attachment to the past and no attachment to what was done before, would you do it this way? And if the answer is absolutely not, that's the first lesson of the day for you taking the charge of the crisis at hand. You can run a small experiment. You test this new process. Someone else, some responsibility. Learn something new, right? Go in and use Claude, right? And learn how to work that through your system. Listen to what your customers are saying instead of just constantly insisting that they behave this way, that you should do X, Y, Z. Kodak's story, it wasn't simply about missing the digital camera. It was about the danger of allowing current success to blind you from the future success. Now, that's the lesson for us in each of this, is that, are you brave enough to build around what's there to adapt to the future that's coming? Are you so stuck in a way that was yesterday that you're going to miss out on everything that's ready for you tomorrow? All right, that's what I have for you today. This is the Little Intro Podcast. I'm Jason Yarusi. Let's do this.